Hey everyone, this is Let's Get Practical with Daryl Girardier, and today we're talking about why you should learn to be a copywriter. Let's do this. Welcome to Let's Get Practical. This podcast is about church communications from a practical standpoint. It's about what works and what doesn't. It's about helping you cut through all of the clutter and noise and getting straight to the point. And today we're getting straight to the point on why you should learn to be a copywriter. Now, you may have no idea what a copywriter is when I say that. That may be a completely, totally foreign term to you, or you may think you exactly know what copywriting is. So let's assume for a second you don't know what it is, and let's kind of agree on a common definition. Copywriting, and for this podcast, we're going to refer to them when we say copywriting. What we're referring to is basically, do you know how to write and tell a story and persuade people? It's writing a story and telling a story and persuading people. That's what copywriting is at the end of the day. Now, here's why copywriting is important and why I think you should learn to be a copywriter. If you think about the church communications domain of the work that you do, and you think of what you really tend to spend your time thinking and focusing about, for a lot of us, we tend to focus on the tools. In other words, the tools being everything from like maybe Adobe Photoshop, Illustrator, maybe it's Final Cut, maybe it's a platform like Facebook, Instagram. We have this tendency to focus on these tools and trying to master those tools because we feel like if we master those tools, then all of a sudden our work is going to get better. And while it is true on one level, the problem is that you can never really ever keep up with all the latest tips, tricks, and trends on those tools. I have this emotional feeling all the time about a fear of missing out on the latest tips and tricks in terms of Instagram and Facebook. In fact, when I open up the Church Communications Facebook group, I'm inundated with information of stuff I didn't know. And I feel like, wow, am I not that good at what I do because I don't know those things? Am I failing at my job? You may identify with that motion. I think a lot of us do, where a coworker comes up to you and says, did you know on Instagram you can now do this? And you feel dumb because you don't know. And you're like, gosh, that's my job. I should have known that. If that's the emotion you're feeling, be honest with you, you're just like all of us. We all feel that way. But the issue is for some of us is when we spend so much time focusing on that, we forget to focus on the core thing that we have to be really good at, and that's copywriting. And that is actually telling the story. That is actually persuading people. See, technology is always going to change. If you're a video producer, if you're a photographer, you're always going to have to deal with the latest camera, the latest lens, the latest Adobe Lightroom update. You're going to be dealing with all those technical things that are going to be happening that are changing in your world. But if you're a church communicator, at the end of the day, you've got to really focus on understanding copywriting because it doesn't matter what you create on all of those platforms. If you don't know how to have proper copywriting to sell those things, then nobody's ever going to see your event, your video, all those things, because you've got to have really great copywriting to persuade people to tell that story. And so for a lot of us, we get caught up in the tips and the tricks and the technology side. And some of us, that's what our jobs are solely about. But if you go back to the fundamental core thing, what you got to learn, and that is copywriting. That is what you've got to do. And in church world, it gives even a little bit further. If you think about it, you are working with ministers, and ministers are trained in theology. They're trained in how to communicate the gospel, maybe to a certain age group, or they're trained on how to create programs, events. That's the world they live in. They're not copywriters. Okay, that's not what they do. They don't really know how to sell their event. In fact, you've probably worked with somebody who's tried to sell their event and say, hey, this is what we want. We want people to come to the event because of X, Y, and Z, and they give you the copy for the bulletin, or maybe it's the announcement on stage, and you sit there and you're going to go, gosh, nobody's going to come to this event if I word it like this. If you have that emotional feeling inside of you, that's the copywriter and you coming out saying, wait, this isn't going to work. So we've got ministers who we love and who are passionate about their calling, what they're called to do. But the reality is they need a copywriter to help bridge that thing that they want people to come to and the people themselves and be that connection point between the two. And that's where you come in. You come in as the storyteller to help tell and craft that story. See, that skill set is never going to go out of date. It's never going to become we're never going to have a time in society where we don't need good copywriters who can compel people and sell people. We've always had people who can do that. And that is your job as a church communicator, is to be able to persuade and communicate people and tell them a story in such a way that they're going to act in a way that you want them to act. So that's what you've got to do as a copywriter. Now, you may be asking yourself, I don't know if I'm a copywriter. Well, here are 5 simple questions I want you to ask yourself about your writing and what you do. And if you answer no to any of these questions, then you probably need to go back and you need to work on your copywriting skills. And I'll give you two resources to do that at the end of the podcast. Question number 1, does your writing compel people to make a decision? In other words, when you write stuff for the bulletin, maybe it's your video announcements, maybe it's stuff that you put on Facebook, are you writing in such a way, and you know for a fact that you write in a way that compels people to actually make a decision? Number 2, can you write in such a way to convince people that you understand them? In other words, does your writing make people think, wow, the person who wrote this really gets me? And if people really feel like you get them, then they're more likely to connect with you and then do whatever the call to action is that you've put into your copy. Number 3, can you write in such a way to get people to change their mind? In other words, if people thought X about something, can you make them think Y? Can you write in such a compelling way, not just to make them make a decision, but to change their mind about something they previously thought? That's pretty powerful if you can do that. Number 4, can you write in a way that grab people's attention? Can you write in a way that makes them stop dead in their tracks and go, I've got to read that. I've got to see that. That, by the way, is truly a skill set that all of us have to develop in a world which people are inundated with more noise. Can you get people and grab their attention with your writing? And number 5, can you write in a way that is brief and succinct? And this is probably the one where I probably struggle with ministers the most. Most ministers I know don't know how to write in a way that is brief and succinct. In fact, there's a lot of things and terms they throw in their writing. They say, this is a must. We must tell them this thing. And I'm always like, no, you don't. You don't need to tell them those things. You just need to tell them something that grabs their attention, gives them empathy that you feel like you know them, and then compels them to a call to action. But for a lot of them, they just don't simply understand that. Do you understand that? Is your writing brief and succinct? In other words, if you look at it, it gets to the point, it accomplishes the mission, but it does it in such a way that's brief and succinct. If you answered no to any of these questions, and by the way, I think all of us on some level could probably go a little bit, yeah, it's a yes, no, maybe, then I believe that you need to train yourself to be a copywriter. You need to learn how to become a better copywriter. And here's 2 quick, easy tools to do that. The first one is called Copyblogger, and that's probably the oldest online tool, resource tool, if you will, about writing copy and writing really well. It's just a long-running blog that is just fantastic. It's really, really good. If you just go to copyblogger.com, you'll go there. They've got a truckload of resources. It's just, honestly, in my mind, it's the de facto resource for learning how to be a really good copywriter. The second resource is StoryBrand. That is Donald Miller's. He's got workshops. He's got online courses. You can actually get a StoryBrand consultant to talk to you about how to write copy, how to tell your story. I've got some friends who've gone through that, who say it's really invaluable. It's not inexpensive. It's actually quite expensive to do. But if you can find some of those StoryBrand resources, those will help you tell a more compelling and better story when it comes to copywriting. And the last one, actually, I just realized as I was talking out loud, a really good one is also copy. I believe it's copywriting, and I will actually put it in the show notes, but it's copywriting with a K, I want to believe. And it's an online course that you can take where the instructor walks you through, I think there's 15 modules. I've taken this course and it's really good. It's super simple and it's just got a truckload of information. I'll put that one in the show notes as well. So that's why I believe you should become a copywriter, because you know what? Copywriting never goes out of style. It's something that you always will have to do. And it really gets to the heart of what you do, which is telling a story. And if you can learn how to be a good copywriter and tell the story and persuade people, then all those other things, those things that you may feel that you're missing out, those things will come to you in time. The technology stuff, you may catch up. It may take you a little while, but the reality is when you arrive at that situation, when you arrive at the place where now all of a sudden you understand the latest Facebook post methodology or the new Instagram story, when you arrive, you're going to arrive with those copywriting tool set, that skill set of telling the story, and that's going to make your stuff on those platforms that much more powerful. Thanks again for listening to this podcast. If you love this podcast, please leave us a rating on iTunes. We would love it and we'd really appreciate it. Also, don't forget, you can always give us feedback by going to the link in the show notes. You can do that as well. We'd love to hear back from you on that. Hope you're having a great day, and I'll talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.